2018's Annihilation is a follow-up to Alex Garland's previous film, Ex Machina. The writer-director comes and adapts a novel from Jeff Vandermeer, the novel being of the same name. This film stars Natalie Portman, Jennifer Jason Leigh, Oscar Isaac, Tessa Thompson, and Gina Rodriguez. The story follows Natalie Portman's Lena as she goes into the Shimmer after her husband, Kane, returns. Noah, what did you think of Annihilation?
Oh, man. When we started watching this, you had already seen it. And you told me to notice, to pay attention. So I was really trying to pick up everything I could. I was picking up all these pieces. And it was getting towards the end, and I still had no idea where the story was going, what it was. I mean, it's suspenseful all the way through that last I'd say 10 minutes, and that whole last 10 minutes is you're on the edge of your seat. Oh man, I really like this movie, and I wasn't guessing on where the story would go. I had no clue what they were going to do with it, and I'm kind of happy with what they did do with it. Without getting into any spoilers, or are we going to get into spoilers with this?
I think we need to spoil it, yeah.
It would be really hard to talk about this without spoiling, and that's why I saw reviews of this when it first came out, and people weren't fond of it. And, now, later, I'm hearing people who are fond of it, and I'm fond of it. And I guess that's kind of... Nobody knew what this was about. Like, I was seeing reviews that weren't spoilers, because I didn't want to get spoiled. I wanted to see this movie. And I still had no clue what this movie was really about. But this movie just... It zagged when you thought it would zig, and I don't know where to start.
It's unpredictable. We just sat down and watched it. This is the second time that I've watched the film. And we're actually recording just on my cell phone without any mics because we want to get our thoughts out immediately.
People are going to say this sounds better.
So, this being my second time, I was a big fan of it the first time I saw it. I just watched it a few weeks ago. For the first time, I got it on Blu-ray. I'm a really big fan of Alex Garland's previous work, as I said, Ex Machina. Ex Machina was one of my favorite science fiction films. The year it came out, it really kind of showed that Alex Garland has a good eye. He knows how to direct. He knows how to get good cinematography out of a picture. He has great sci-fi sensibilities. He's a good writer. Ex Machina kind of reminded me of I would say, something like 2001: A Space Odyssey, or even The Shining. So basically, Stanley Kubrick's kind of eye, and Annihilation, I think, took that even further.
Mm-hmm. He loves keeping you on the edge of your seat. I can tell. I mean, just like The Shining, I felt the same way through that.
So, in this movie, Alex Garland, what he said when he was creating it was that he read the book, he waited, and then he wrote the script based on what he remembered from the book. So there are a lot of differences between this and the book. The book is actually the first part of a trilogy, whereas this movie, Alex Garland has specifically said, stands on its own, and he does not want to continue making films. He hopes the studio doesn't, and judging by the box office numbers of this movie, they probably won't. The movie didn't do well.
And it also came out, in February last year, though?
Right, February or March of last year.
I mean, you're not going to get much traffic in that time anyways.
And then I think they released it against Black Panther.
Yeah.
So that really kind of hurt it. And granted, the marketing for the movie did not properly depict. It didn't exist. The marketing that was there didn't properly depict the kind of movie that it is. So Alex Garland rewrote this movie from memory, and he added his own sensibilities to it. The movie follows Lena, Natalie Portman's character. Her husband, Oscar Isaac, returns back from going into the Shimmer. The Shimmer is this alien substance that is taking over a large landmass, centering at a lighthouse. And as it encompasses this area, the government sends in teams, and each team doesn't return. This goes on for months. But finally, one person returns, Oscar Isaac. Oscar Isaac's Kane. And in the opening moments of this film, he returns and confronts Natalie Portman in their home. But something's off about him. He doesn't seem quite right. He can't remember what has happened. And from there, the movie kind of takes off with him getting sick. Mm-hmm. And then where he's been being explained to Natalie Portman by Jennifer Jason Leigh's character, Ventress. Mm-hmm. What did you think of Oscar Isaac's performance in this?
I mean, for the short parts that we got from him, I mean, I'm just gonna come out and say it. The one when it's not really him, I mean, he has to play a really toned down, monotone character.
Sure.
That I feel like it doesn't take a lot to pull off that. I think the end when him and Lena, if it's Lena, meet, I think that was a standout. I mean, I liked it. I didn't find anything bad in it. It wasn't a big standout to me.
I enjoyed his performance. I think you can tell from the flashbacks that he's in, and when he comes back, you can really tell the difference. And the thing that stood out to me the second time viewing it is when she gets to the lighthouse.
Yeah, I was about to say that the video that he sent when he's sitting on the floor, that really stood out. That was his moment in this film.
And he's so much different in that moment than he was earlier.
He had like a southern draw.
Yep.
It was something off about it, and I thought that was portrayed well. Other than that, nothing was like Oscar. Nothing made me think something that high of it.
From his performance?
Yeah.
So as we go on in the film, the Oscar Isaac is being ambulanced to the hospital, and he gets cut off by Area X. Area X being the base where the government is sending in military personnel into the Shimmer to investigate. So he gets cut off. Natalie Portman's character is with him, and as she gets taken to the Area X, Jennifer Jason Leigh explains what's going on, what happened to her husband, and then from there we learn that Natalie Portman decides to go into the Shimmer. She is a biologist, to decide to help her husband from inside by figuring out what's going on. What did you think of Jennifer Jason Leigh and Natalie Portman?
I like Jennifer Jason Leigh in this. It was the last thing I saw her in was Hateful Eight, and it was a very different performance. I really enjoyed this, especially once when we get to the lighthouse, and she's down in that hole or whatever. I think that was kind of her big moment in the film. I really like Natalie Portman throughout the whole thing. It surprises me she hasn't got more recognition for this.
Sure.
I feel like this whole movie's kind of just slid under because it was released so early in the year, and it was competing with a movie like Black Panther that just got nominated for an Oscar. I feel like that kind of happened with Get Out last year too. People kind of looked over it, even though it was a great movie. But I really liked Natalie Portman's performance in it. I liked what's her name? I like Tessa Thompson's performance in it.
Sure. The thing I'll say about Tessa Thompson and Jennifer Jason Leigh is I appreciated how their performances unfolded as compared to somebody like Gina Rodriguez, who is very intense throughout the whole film.
Yeah, I was about to say that.
And gets more intense.
Mm-hmm.
Tessa Thompson and Jennifer Jason Leigh start out very subdued. You don't really know what their story is, and as you begin to learn more about them, what they've gone through, and why they've made the decision to go into the Shimmer, you can see their personalities kind of open up and unfold, and you learn why they acted the way they did.
Mm-hmm.
Natalie Portman, I thought was fine. I thought she was competent in the film, and I think that she brought the most star power to the picture. But frankly, I didn't think that she was as good as everybody else around her.
Really?
Yeah. I think that she was very much hitting Natalie Portman beats, and there are certain scenes where you can see her confusion or her trying to understand. I think she shines when she hits the beach, so everything from the beach to the lighthouse.
Yeah.
I think that's well done. But throughout the rest of the picture, it seems like she's playing confused because she is confused, if that makes any sense.
Well, I mean, that would be authentic. I mean, you're gonna be confused in that situation, and when she's starting to figure things out, I think you can tell she's starting to figure things out. I think I really enjoyed it from when they went into the Shimmer to the end. I really liked her performance, and not so much Gina Rodriguez, like you said from the beginning.
I think Gina Rodriguez is probably the weakest.
Yeah, she doesn't change. She's intense at the start and intense when she dies. Tessa is really reserved at the start, and then when they give her moment, when she turns into a freaking plant. I mean, she turns into a freaking plant, but she did it well. It was believable, her reasonings behind why she was at peace with that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think her arc was done well. I like Portman's performance in this. I feel like all those emotions that you see on her face about her being confused and all this would be authentic in the moment. I think she plays that well.
Sure. So I've seen a lot of reviews, media saying that the film, the first half of it is slow, and that it doesn't really kick in. Did you kind of feel the same way?
I mean, I feel like once they got in the Shimmer, it sped up. It was it dragged a little bit once they got to the base and they were kind of carrying it on, introducing the rest of the characters. Mm-hmm. But
I mean, that happens fairly early on in the film.
Yeah, I don't feel like it went on that long. I mean, once they got into the Shimmer, I didn't feel like anything was dragging at all.
The first time I did not think that it moved slow. I appreciated the pace. They were kind of explaining the characters. You had to see Natalie Portman in her natural element as a professor. You had to see that relationship with her work colleague, and see where that goes in the film, where it's revealed that she cheated on her husband with him. You have to see Oscar Isaac as he used to be, and as opposed to how he is now. I appreciated all of that. The second time I watched it, I thought it moved even quicker. I was surprised by how fast I thought the movie went all together, and it seemed like it flew by to me. I was picking up new things, but even beyond that, I think when you view the picture as a whole, I think the structure of it is built very well.
How much new stuff did you pick up on this second watch?
So to go into some of the more spoilery items, Natalie Portman throughout the movie, Alex Garland doesn't draw a lot of attention to this, but she does not have a tattoo. Natalie Portman doesn't have a tattoo, but Gina Rodriguez's character does.
And I pointed that out to you, and when they were in the scene with B.D. Wong, isn't that his name? Benedict
Wong?
Something Wong.
B.D. Wong is the guy in Law and Order. Fox, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, when he's interrogating
Orman.
Yeah.
Lena.
And she has that tattoo, and I noticed it. And then when Gina is interrogating the three of them, after she found out that Lena's husband was the psychopath who cut open this guy's stomach earlier in the movie in a flashback. She has that same tattoo, and I leaned over to you, and I'm like, what? Everyone has that tattoo. And you're like, everyone? Really? And as I watched it more, I noticed that Natalie didn't have that tattoo for...
So, I didn't notice this the first time, but as you go through the film, the way that Gina Rodriguez has this infinity symbol tattoo on her forearm, on her left forearm, and Natalie Portman's does not. They show her arms numerous times in the beginning of the film. So as you go through the film, the first thing is she complains about a bruise on her arm. And this is the excuse for her to start taking blood samples. And so Alec Garland does a good job of using misdirection to putting your attention on the fact that she's testing her blood, and she's doing it on her forearm. But if you also notice, that bruise begins to very, very slightly take the shape of Gina Rodriguez's infinity symbol. The couple times that she tests her blood, it becomes more defined, and then by the time she hits the beach, she's got the full tattoo. Another thing I noticed is that, and I think you noticed this too because you look kind of weird, was when they arrived at the house where all the flower people are.
Yeah, it's her house.
It's her house. It's a reflection of her house,
Yeah.
which that's outside the shimmer.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting that that's the case, but the floor plan is completely the same.
Yeah, that struck me because I get the whole thing with the shimmers messing with their DNA, but that house is it's outside the shimmer, and it's not connected to Portman in any way. I don't understand why it would be in there. Do you have any ideas?
The only thing I can think is that when the first character that dies,
Yeah.
and Tessa Thompson begins to explain that her final moment, her final memory, is reflected in the bear, and the bear has her voice and the voice of her pain. Perhaps the house is a reflection of Lena's memories. That's the only thing I can think. Lena's, or maybe even Kane, because Kane was there first.
Yeah. I don't know, because they were saying her whole point was her final memory was what was encapsulated in this bear. Right?
Right.
And I mean, it shows Lena and Kane outside of the shimmer ever since they left the house. So it wasn't their final memory.
No, I don't think it necessarily had to be the final memory. I just think in the case of the character who died first, it was her final memory. Continuing on, so as they begin to make their way through the shimmer, they realize that they haven't been able to keep track of the amount of time they've been in there. And the way I would explain this, because you asked, how are they still remembering things?
How do they remember what happened, a couple minutes ago and stuff like that?
I think on the outer edges of the shimmer, they can't remember that because that would be the most reflected area. And then as they begin working towards the middle of it, then they're able to retain their memories. But the further and further they go, the more that the shimmer presses on them, the more their bodies and their minds begin to deteriorate and begin to reflect each other and reflect the other things in the shimmer. That's evidenced by the alligator with the teeth of a shark, because part of the shimmer, if you look at the map at the beginning of the movie, goes over the ocean. That's reflected by the plant people. So the plants that look like people, and then even Tessa Thompson becomes a person that becomes a plant.
Yeah.
So the reflection of the thing that she's just talking about. So as they work their way through, they come upon a base where they see a videotape of Oscar Isaac's Kane cutting open one of his team members, and his insides are moving.
Yeah, what do you think that is? Because they don't address that.
I don't think it's a direct reflection of any in particular animal or any in particular organism.
Because they talk about as they're in there and they go deeper and deeper, their hands and their fingerprints are moving like liquid. And I don't know, maybe it extends into your insides too.
Possibly. But you do see that they find this guy's body, and he's completely burst open.
Yeah.
In a state of like fungus.
Yeah.
He's become a fungus. So maybe that's when his intestines are moving. That's part of the process.
Yeah, maybe he's just turning into that.
He's growing and becoming fungus.
So what decides what you're gonna ultimately be? Like what do you think chose that guy to become that fungus and chose Tessa's character to become
I think in the reality of the film, I don't think.
Or do you think it's just random?
I don't think there's particular choices that the alien organism is making. I think that it's a prism and it's just random what they.
Then I have a problem with I mean.
Hold on, let me say this, but I think Alex Garland, as a writer, makes very specific choices about what they're reflected into. Because Tessa Thompson, we know that she cuts.
Yeah.
And the plants, when they begin to grow, they start growing out of the cuts. Because she wants to feel something. And Jennifer Jason Leigh's character, Ventress. She has cancer going in. She wants to know what this thing is, and then the thing becomes her. The thing is in her. And when she ends up dying, when she becomes light, the light reforms into the true form of the alien. So I think while it's random in the reality of the story, I think the choices made by Alex Garland reflect each character.
Yeah.
So at this point in the movie, you kind of leaned over and you said that you had a problem with the plot.
I did?
Yeah. Do you have any issues with the plot, or was that...
I don't remember doing that.
Yeah. See, the shimmer is destroying your mind.
Yeah. I guess I probably said that because I just didn't understand what was going on. I think I said something that didn't make sense, and then you gave some explanation that kind of clicked it. But I don't know. His choices for how what the characters turn into just seem coincidental because Tessa had the answer for why they turned into plants, and then she just so happens to turn into a plant.
Sure.
If that's the only gripe I have about that, that's probably it.
I appreciate the fact that right before that happens, she says that, well, Ventress wants one thing, Lena wants another. I don't want either of those things. And she just lets herself go. And when she lets herself go, it's like a rapid change that she lets the shimmer take her over.
Yeah. What do you think Lena's character would have turned into had she just let go?
So let's hold off on that. So the next thing, because I have a theory, so we'll get to that when we get to the lighthouse. So as the characters move forward, they reach Lena's home. That's when Gina Rodriguez turns on them. Mm-hmm. She feels herself beginning to slip away, and the bear creature arrives. So what I'd kind of like to ask you at this point in the film, between the bear creature, between the alligator, the scene at night when the bear attacks the first person, I wouldn't necessarily call this film a horror movie.
Mm-hmm. No.
But how do you think it handles maybe the tenseness, the scary aspects of the story?
Oh, really well.
Yeah.
I said I was tense those whole scenes. The first bear attack felt really quick, which it probably was intended to. It just snatched her and went, and it felt like they moved on from that pretty quick. There was a moment after when Jennifer Jason Leigh's character was like, all right, well, she's gone, we gotta move on.
Yeah, that did seem a little quick. I did appreciate how Tessa Thompson addressed it.
Yeah.
The thing that I have sort of a problem with in that moment is that she's standing right next to Lena.
Yeah.
So how does Lena not see what's going on?
I was just about to say that. I mean, it's dark, I get that, but like this massive bear character, and you're right next to this chick who's just about to get snatched and grabbed away. You got to be able to see that.
Right.
And
I think that was the point in the movie where you said the characters started acting like movie characters. What do you mean by that?
They just felt like that was the one part where it felt like if they felt like stereotypical horror characters.
Sure.
But I think that he drew them away from it quick and brought them back. So it didn't affect the whole movie.
Just in that particular moment. Yeah. Okay, I can kind of see that. How they maybe don't make smart decisions, or
like
they're acting that way for a plot, not necessarily how their characters would act.
Like Tessa is the shocked one that wants to dwell on it. Gina is the one who expresses it in anger, and it's like that through the whole movie. But after those scenes, it feels elevated, and then Jennifer Jason Leigh's character is the one who's puts it off, kind of in denial, like, oh, we got to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
But other than those moments, I don't feel like they're elevated like that throughout the whole film.
So as Lena leaves Tessa Thompson and Gina Rodriguez's bodies behind, she goes to the lighthouse. I appreciate the visuals of how the trees are reflected and start growing out of the sand, and sand is glass, so the trees become glass. And then she comes across a skeleton.
This movie is visually just stunning.
It is stunning. We watched it in 4K HDR.
Dolby Vision, not HDR, brother.
Yeah.
It's amazing. You didn't even watch it in Dolby Vision the first time.
No, my Blu-ray player
doesn't. Your Blu-ray player doesn't support Dolby Vision. But, I mean, you guys should pick this up. Just, if you don't like the story, pick it up for how it looks. Because there's some scenes in here that are demo quality on that showcase the Dolby Vision.
It's visually stunning.
Yeah.
And movies like this make me appreciate how far technology has come in the home, to the point where the theaters can't even compare really anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I just saw Glass in the theater, and I can't wait to get that in 4K to bring it home and watch it, because there are some scenes at night when it feels really muddy in the theater that I really hope are really clear. But the home theater technology has come so far to where it's way better than theater. When you go to a theater, you can. When you get out, you're kind of waiting for you to be able to get that disc to see it even better than what it was.
Sure. By the way, we're recording this podcast out of order, so if you listen to it in order, Noah will talk about Glass earlier on in the podcast and his thoughts on that.
Mm-hmm.
But getting back to this movie, Lena arrives at the lighthouse. She confronts Ventress, who becomes the alien creature. We see the alien creature's true form. By the way, in this moment, and throughout the whole movie, I think the soundtrack is great. I think the couple songs that they choose are very well chosen. And then the soundtrack itself, I think it's really well scored.
Yeah, for me, I know I really like a soundtrack if it doesn't stick out to me, if it doesn't draw my attention to it.
Really?
Like if I'm listening to a movie and a soundtrack and a particular part sticks out to me and I start thinking about the soundtrack, I typically don't like it, how it was done. There was only one part of that in this movie, and that's when Jennifer Jason Leigh's character blew up.
Yeah.
And it became this whole thing that started to suck in.
She's not going to be in Rush Hour 3.
She started to suck in a drop. It started to suck in a drop of Natalie Portman's character's blood.
Uh-huh.
The music there, it kind of felt out of place.
Really? I love that. With the bass. Because I think it both served as a portion of the soundtrack and also the aliens' way of communicating.
I mean, I guess I didn't have a problem with the bass, but like the other parts of it that
Like the music playing underneath that.
yeah, that's what I didn't like. And I
Sure.
guess if you pointed out the way kind of the alien communicating, I guess it fills that in for me.
Sure.
Other than that, I really loved the score, and the rest of the music in this movie. It's just that one part that stuck out to me.
So in the final moments of the film, Natalie Portman's blood gets drawn into the alien creature. The alien creature reforms and slowly begins to duplicate her both physically and in her movements and actions. So at this point in the film, I really like the ending of it. I think the ending most reminds me of a Kubrick movie, with like kind of like how the end of, I know you haven't seen it, but 2001: A Space Odyssey ends with it being very avant-garde. I'm not going to tell you what happens in this in terms of tone. It ends very avant-garde. It's not as literal as the rest of the movie. And I think this movie mirrors that. This movie's a little more literal because you kind of understand what's happening, but not totally. So I assume you think it's effective as well.
Yeah.
But at this point, do you think... Well, I'll just ask you, what are your theories about the ending of the movie?
I think... Man, this is tough.
So what I mean by that is, do you think Oscar Isaac, the one that survives, is the real one or the alien?
No, I don't think that, because I feel like we see his character throughout all the flashbacks.
Mm-hmm.
He's mentally going. And then I feel like when we see that video, and first of all, when she gets in the lighthouse and she looks over and sees that body that's been burnt to a crisp, I thought it was Jennifer Jason Leigh at first, because
Sure.
I saw the gun and I was like, oh, all right, this is her. And then it cuts to the camera and you see that it's him, and I think it's him because you see him slowly start to deteriorate, and throughout when you follow Natalie Portman, you weren't seeing her mind go as you saw with Gina Rodriguez.
Mm-hmm.
So I think and Tessa Thompson, as her mind was going, because she was totally okay with dying at the end.
Sure.
And I think when we see Oscar Isaac's character at the end, his mind is gone, and he wants it to be done, and I feel like that's why he blew himself up. And
so you think the one that blew himself up is the real one?
Is the real one, and then I think
Sure.
the other one is the alien.
Is the clone. I'd agree with that. When Oscar Isaac, when Kane comes back earlier in the movie, he looks the same way as when he left. That's one thing. Like the clothing he's wearing.
Oh, really? I
The
didn't
style
notice
of his
that.
hair. Yeah, that's another thing I noticed.
Was it slicked back like that?
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
And then another thing I noticed in the kitchen scene when he's talking to Lena, he has the glass.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, when this movie started and he had the glass and he was sitting down at the chair with a glass of water, you gave a little at that. I was wondering what you were thinking of.
And this may just be a directing choice, but the camera focuses on the glass, and it's a glass of water, and it focuses specifically on the reflection of Oscar Isaac. It focuses on like his hands moving around the glass, and it's not focusing on his hand, it's focusing on the reflection of his hand. And I think that's an indicator that Oscar Isaac is the clone. He's the reflection of the original Oscar Isaac.
The refraction of his hand, because it's moving through a different medium.
Right.
And then, it connects it through the film when Tessa was talking about the shimmer being a refraction.
Here's the thing, and this will lead into the other theory. Natalie Portman doesn't really have a moment like that. She has a glass of water,
Mm-hmm.
but she drinks on it, and the camera's more focusing on the fact that there isn't blood in the water. Do you think that the Natalie Portman that survives is a clone?
I don't think so. Because when she gets, and I struggle with it because the only reason I don't think so is because of one moment, and it's when she touches the alien and the alien starts to become her, and she grabs a grenade and pulls the pin and lets go. I mean, to me, that looks like the alien blew up and everything caught on fire, and the shimmer just burns away. And so, if Oscar Isaac, the original Kane blew himself up, and the clone got away, and the shimmer was still there, but then this Lena character blows up and everything goes, and the other Lena, whether it be in her or a clone, gets away and the shimmer's gone. That makes me think it's the real Lena.
That's a good point. So Lena's not the one that's interesting, because when Kane blows himself up, he kind of burns up right away.
Yeah.
But the creature that appears to be the alien at the end doesn't. It starts burning on his hands, and then it moves up the body, and then as it touches things, those things begin to burn.
I think I think it's the original Lena, because I mean, why would the shimmer all of a sudden be gone if it was the clone who got away?
I do think that the Lena that comes back is the original Lena, but I think she's very different. I think the shimmer has bent her mind and her body so much that she's not the same as when she started.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I do agree with you. I went back and forth on it, but watching it again, I don't think that she's the clone.
Because she's the first real person to get out of it. Because they said Oscar Isaac's character, Kane, was the first one, but it was his clone. So, I think she still has those effects. I think it is the real Lena.
I agree.
So
overall, I know we kind of touched on some of the issues with the characters' decisions early on in the movie, but did you really have any other problems with the film?
No, I wanted to ask you a question because I'm still pondering this. At the very end, before credits roll, at the end of their interrogation, she asks about what happened to her husband, not knowing. Speculating, but not knowing fully. What happened to him once the shimmer had left, and he tells him that he kind of stabilized and everything was okay. Do you think that means? What do you think that meant when they finally get back together, and they're meeting, and it's the replica, and doesn't he say he's not?
Yep.
And then, what do you think that means when he asks her if she's the original Lena and she doesn't say anything?
I don't know if she knows if she's the original Lena or not.
Really? Because she's changed so much? Because it zooms into their irises, and their irises are changing color.
Hers is changing more than his, which makes me believe that, and I may have just been looking for this, so I may be reading into it, but I think that his aren't changing as much because he's the reflection, and hers are changing because she's the original and she's been changed. So the reflection is trying more to be Oscar Isaac. She doesn't have to try to be herself because she is herself. She's just changed from her experience in the shimmer. That's how I read into it. Yeah, I don't really have any major issues with this film. Gina Rodriguez's performance wasn't that great. I didn't buy into her as kind of the soldier character, but I think it works enough to where I don't overread into it.
Does this make you want to go see Miss Bala?
No, absolutely not.
Her performance.
But overall, I'm a really big fan of this film. I love everything I've seen of Alex Garland's work, and I think that.
Does this make your best of 2018 list?
Yeah, like if I had a top 10, it would be in the top 10. I don't know how close to the top it would be, but it would be in the top
5.
I'm not sure yet. I'd have to think on it.
It'd be in my top 10. Yeah, I was surprised at how much I actually liked it.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I mean, coming off of watching Roma, which is so boring. I don't get it, which I get because there's really two sides. You either love Roma or you don't. But I really enjoyed this movie.
So, we haven't really come up with a scoring system or anything, but if you had to give it a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, 5 being the highest, what would you give it?
Can we do decimals?
Or we can do up to 10, I guess, if you want to do like a 10-point thing.
Oh. So, out of 10, I'll probably, because of the subtle moments when they are going kind of suspenseful and horror with these moments, because of the intensity that these characters ramp up to, and the one moment with the score that kind of felt like it pulled me out, I would probably give this a 9.4.
So you give it a 94 out of 100.
Yeah.
How granular can you be?
Yeah.
I would personally give it probably a 9 out of 10. I really enjoyed it. I really liked it. It's hard to get into that top tier for me. There are only a few movies ever that I think are that high. But I like this movie enough to rate it a 9 out of 10. I think it's a good follow-up and companion piece to Alex Garland's Ex Machina. So if you've seen Ex Machina, you're probably going to like this too. If you watched and liked Ex Machina as well. So that's pretty much, we've talked for 40 minutes. So I think that is our thoughts on.
I will say, the reason I rate this so high is because at the end of this movie, I just sat here pondering. I didn't even say a word.
Yeah, you were silent.
I was silent, just thinking. And if a movie can do that to me, that puts it high. Like the end of Infinity War, I sat in the theater the whole credits and didn't say a word, and then I sat for another 5 minutes after the end credit scene and didn't say a word. So
very different reasons to sit silently after those two.
Different reasons, but if a movie can make me think like that at the end, it gets a really high rating from me.
Sure.